Picture this. You're dragged into a dimly lit chamber, the air thick with the scent of fear and desperation. Your captors force you toward a seemingly simple wooden pyramid, no taller than a chair, but this is no ordinary furniture. This is the Judas Cradle, and in the next few hours, it will become your entire world of agony. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this device was considered one of the most psychologically devastating torture instruments ever devised, and why its very existence reveals the darkest corners of human nature. Before we dive into this haunting tale, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what we uncover about humanity's capacity for cruelty. And stick around until the end, because I'll reveal the shocking connection between this medieval torture device and a practice that still exists in some parts of the world today. The year is 1578. The Spanish Inquisition is at its peak, and heretics are being hunted across Europe like animals. In the underground chambers of Toledo, a prisoner named Isabella Martinez trembles as the guards drag her toward an ominous wooden structure. She has been accused of practicing witchcraft, though her only crime was knowing too much about medicinal herbs. The Inquisitors have already tried other methods to extract her confession, but Isabella has remained steadfast in her innocence. Now, they introduce her to their most insidious creation. The Judas Cradle stands before her like a malevolent throne. Constructed from rough-hewn wood and measuring roughly 3 feet in height, its pyramid shape tapers to a sharp, unforgiving point at the apex. The base is wide and stable, but the top is where nightmares are born. The point isn't sharp enough to pierce flesh immediately, but it's narrow enough to cause excruciating pressure and gradual penetration. Isabella's eyes widen in terror as she realizes the device's purpose. This isn't designed for a quick death. This is engineered for prolonged suffering, a slow descent into madness that could last for hours, even days. The guards strip Isabella of her clothing, as was customary with this particular torture method. Nudity wasn't just about humiliation, though that was certainly part of it. The exposed skin would ensure maximum contact with the rough wooden surface, and any clothing might provide even the smallest cushion against the device's cruel design. Every element of the Judas Cradle was calculated to maximize both physical and psychological torment. But here's where the true horror begins, and this is something that will chill you to the bone. The Judas Cradle wasn't just about physical pain, it was a masterpiece of psychological warfare, designed to break the human spirit long before it broke the human body. The executioners would position Isabella above the point, using ropes and pulleys to control her descent. Her legs would be tied to weights, adding gravitational force to the already unbearable pressure. But here's the diabolical genius of this device. The rate of descent could be controlled completely by her torturers. They could lower her quickly for immediate agony, or slowly, fraction by fraction, making each millimeter of descent a new level of hell. The psychological torture was perhaps even worse than the physical pain. Isabella would know exactly what was happening to her. She could see the point approaching, feel the increasing pressure, and understand that her suffering would only intensify with each passing moment. The wooden point would begin to press against her perineum, the sensitive area between the genitalia and the anus. The initial contact might seem almost bearable, but as gravity and the added weights did their work, the pressure would increase exponentially. The rough wood would begin to tear and penetrate delicate tissue, causing internal bleeding and excruciating pain that would radiate throughout her entire body. But wait, there's more to this story that will absolutely shock you. Stay with me. The Spanish Inquisition didn't invent the Judas Cradle. Archaeological evidence suggests that similar devices were used in ancient civilizations from Babylon to Rome. The concept of the pyramid torture device appears in historical records spanning over 2 millennia. What the Spanish perfected was the psychological methodology surrounding its use. Inquisitors would often place the Judas Cradle in full view of other prisoners, allowing them to witness the slow agony of their fellow captives. This served a dual purpose. It terrorized those awaiting their own interrogation, and it provided additional psychological pressure on the current victim, who knew they were being watched in their most vulnerable and degrading moments. The device earned its name from Judas Iscariot, the apostle who betrayed Jesus Christ. The symbolism was intentional and deeply theological. Just as Judas had betrayed the Son of God, those subjected to the Judas Cradle were considered traitors to the faith. The pyramid shape itself held religious significance, representing the unholy trinity of the devil, as opposed to the divine trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But here's something that most people don't know about the Judas Cradle, and it's going to make you question everything you think you understand about medieval torture. The device was often used as a threat, rather than an actual torture method. The mere sight of the Judas Cradle was frequently enough to extract confessions from terrified prisoners. Inquisitors would lead suspects into the torture chamber, show them the device, explain in graphic detail how it worked, and then give them one final opportunity to confess their sins. Many broke at this point, preferring to admit to crimes they hadn't committed, rather than face the horrible reality of the pyramid's point. This psychological manipulation was perhaps even more effective than the physical torture itself. The Judas Cradle became a symbol of ultimate suffering, and its reputation preceded it wherever the Inquisition traveled. Isabella, however, was different. Even faced with this instrument of torture, she maintained her innocence. Her faith in her own truth was stronger than her fear of pain. This infuriated her captors, who saw her defiance as additional evidence of her supposed corruption by dark forces. The process began slowly. Isabella was lowered onto the point with excruciating gradual precision. The initial contact caused her to scream, but this was only the beginning. Over the course of several hours, the wooden pyramid would penetrate deeper into her body, causing massive internal trauma. The genius of the Judas Cradle lay in its ability to avoid major blood vessels and organs initially, prolonging the victim's consciousness and awareness. Death would come from internal bleeding, infection, or shock, but not quickly. Some victims survived for days on the device, their bodies slowly succumbing to the relentless pressure and penetration. Medical historians have studied the physiological effects of the Judas Cradle extensively. The device would cause tears in the perineal tissue, potential damage to the rectum and reproductive organs, and severe trauma to the pelvic floor muscles. The wooden surface, often left intentionally rough and unsanitized, would introduce bacteria and foreign matter into the wounds, virtually guaranteeing infection even if the victim somehow survived the initial trauma. But here's where our story takes an unexpected turn, and this is the part that will leave you speechless. Isabella's ordeal lasted for 13 hours. Historical records from the Inquisition archives discovered in the 19th century provide a detailed account of her torture session. She was lowered onto the Judas Cradle at dawn and remained there until sunset. Throughout this entire period, she never confessed to the charges against her. Her torturers, frustrated by her resilience, eventually removed her from the device. But Isabella's suffering wasn't over. The internal injuries caused by the Judas Cradle led to severe infection, and she died in her cell 3 days later. However, her death sparked something unexpected. Word of Isabella's steadfast refusal to confess, even under such extreme torture, spread throughout the local community, rather than serving as a warning to other potential heretics. Her story became a symbol of resistance against the Inquisition's brutality. Local clergy began to question the methods being used in the name of faith, and several prominent religious figures publicly condemned the use of the Judas Cradle. This is where the historical significance of the Judas Cradle extends beyond its immediate horror. Isabella's case became one of the documented examples that contributed to the eventual decline of torture as an officially sanctioned interrogation method within the Catholic Church. But here's the truly disturbing part that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Variations of the Judas Cradle concept haven't entirely disappeared from human history. During the 20th century, similar devices and methodologies were documented in various conflicts around the world. While not identical to the medieval Judas Cradle, the principle of using pyramid-shaped objects to inflict gradual, increasing pressure on sensitive areas of the human body has appeared in documented cases of torture and abuse. Human rights organizations have reported instances of improvised pyramid devices being used in illegal detention facilities, though the exact details are often too graphic and sensitive to discuss in public forums. The psychological impact of threatening someone with this type of torture remains as effective today as it was 5 centuries ago. The Judas Cradle represents something fundamental about human nature that we need to confront. It wasn't created by monsters or psychopaths. It was designed and implemented by ordinary people who believed they were serving a greater good. The inquisitors who used these devices were convinced they were saving souls and protecting their faith from corruption. This is perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the Judas Cradle's legacy. It demonstrates how easily normal human beings can justify the most extreme cruelty when they believe their cause is righteous. The device itself was just wood and rope, but the real horror lay in the minds that conceived it and the society that permitted its use. Understanding this history isn't just about satisfying morbid curiosity, it's about recognizing the warning signs in our own time and our own societies. The same psychological mechanisms that allowed the Judas Cradle to exist are still present in human nature today. So what happened to Isabella's story? How did one woman's refusal to break under torture help change the course of history? And what can we learn from the Judas Cradle about the ongoing struggle between authority and individual conscience? These are questions that extend far beyond the medieval torture chamber. They speak to fundamental issues about human rights, the limits of governmental power, and the price of maintaining personal integrity in the face of overwhelming pressure. If this video has made you think differently about history, human nature, or the importance of protecting individual rights, please let me know in the comments below. What do you think motivated Isabella to endure such suffering, rather than simply confess to charges she knew were false? How do we guard against similar abuses of power in our modern world? Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the darker corners of human history, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Next week we'll be exploring another instrument of medieval torture that will make the Judas Cradle seem almost merciful by comparison. Until then, remember Isabella Martinez. Remember her courage, her suffering, and her unwavering commitment to truth, in a world that often seems to reward compromise and submission. Her story reminds us that sometimes the most important battles are fought not with swords or armies, but with the simple, terrifying act of refusing to lie about who we are and what we believe.